Hi, I'm Andrew, and today we're going to talk about chisels for the beginning woodworker. I'm going to cover the three main families of chisel and then cover some sizes that you should start out with as part of a basic toolkit. So a chisel consists of two main parts, the blade and the handle, but particularly the blade has different areas, different features that each have a specific name. So this is the bevel, which is right adjacent to or forms part of the cutting edge. The back of the chisel is known as the face. The edge of the chisel, this is called the land. So this is the cutting bevel. This particular chisel has bevels along the sides or edges, so it's known as a bevel edge chisel. Where the handle and blade meet, this flared section, this is known as the bolster, and there's a flat area, that's called the shoulder, which is what registers against the end of the handle. This particular chisel, there's a leather shock washer in here, and to help prevent the handle from splitting, we have a ferrule. You can't see it, but buried inside the handle is a projection called a tang, and that's what actually forms the physical connection between the blade and the handle. Got some bevel edge chisels here. Bevel edge chisels get their name from these angles or bevels that run along the side of the chisel. And bevel edge chisels were developed specifically for working into dovetail joints. So you can see I've got a recess here between these two dovetails. And having a chisel with a nice narrow edge here allows me to work into that corner without damaging the opening. A firmer chisel is a chisel that is lacking those bevels, and it actually has a thicker blade than the bevel edge chisel, and it is for heavier work, wasting larger amounts of material. And the last style of chisel you'll commonly encounter, this is called a utility chisel really. These were developed more for construction use, which is not to say that you can't use them in furniture making, but you'll notice that the bevels here are quite narrow, and the lands, what are called the lands, the edge of the chisel, are quite thick. And so these stand up well to heavy use, but because of those thick lands, they don't get into the recesses between dovetails without bruising the opening. When you're just starting out, you may not require the narrow lands that a bevel edge chisel give you, but if dovetails are in your plan, then that's a good place to start. On the other hand, if you're thinking of just staying with more basic joints, like the dado or the rabbet joint, then it's okay to restrict yourself to a heavier chisel like a firmer chisel or a utility chisel. So I'm going to talk about the two key sizes of chisel that you should purchase when you're beginning woodworking. The first is a wider chisel in the 1 inch to 1.25 inch range. And this is tremendously useful for rapid material removing and also for incising things like shoulders, because the broad width gives you a more accurate cut and also speeds the work because you need to take fewer cuts when working across a piece. The second chisel you should get is one in the 1/2 inch to 5/8 of an inch range. Most of the work we do is in 3/4 of an inch thick stock, and these chisels are just the perfect size for working in that thickness of material. So a few important points when you're shopping for a chisel. The first thing you want to do is ensure that the blade and the handle are aligned with each other. So you can see I'm sighting down and I'm just eyeballing in this position, and then I'm going to turn it 90 degrees to make sure that they're aligned in the other axis. The other thing that you want to evaluate is just the overall quality of the grinding and finishing. You can see on this chisel, the bevels along the edge are nice and even. The whole blade is finished to the same standard, the same degree of polish. If I take a look at the end of the blade, without using a square, I can tell the cutting edge is square to the sides. The other thing, although this is difficult to actually evaluate in a store or at a flea market is you want a back that is lapped flat or is as flat as possible. This will save you a considerable amount of time during the initial setup. There are many more styles of specialty chisel available, but really to get going, all you need are 2 sizes in one of these essential styles that we just showed you. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you again next time.